So much for get vax, ditch the mask, eh? Mask mania is making a comeback as predicted here on this show. Democrats' favorite cloth fetish, mass hysteria, was on a short hiatus while they tried to induce every person in America over the age of 12 to get vaccinated this past spring. So why did Fauci and the rest of the lab coat tyrants promise vaccines would be the end of the pandemic? Well, friends, we'll answer it on Hold the Line.
The recommendations and the guidelines have been changed to say that if you are vaccinated, even though you are vaccinated, you are in an indoor public setting in an area of the country with a high degree of viral dynamics, then you need to wear a mask, even though you are vaccinated.
Welcome to Hold the Line. I'm Buck Sexton. So much to discuss today about where we are in the battle against the dwindling COVID-19 virus out there. You wouldn't really get the sense from a lot of the media headlines right now that we're actually in a much better place when it comes to COVID than we were 6 months ago, a year ago, that the virus numbers of hospitalizations and deaths are a tiny fraction of what they were when this was really at its peak. And we have about half the country vaccinated. 160 million Americans actually have been vaccinated at this point. Over 100 million are estimated to have natural immunity after recovering from infection. So there's a lot of herd immunity already out there. And yet there are some pockets of virus that keep popping up in different places across the country. And so we have to get these constant lectures. We have to be told by the Fauciites that we're going to be going through a terrible surge unless everybody gets vaccinated. Here he is telling us about what he thinks is happening. Dr. Fauci.
Right now, fortunately for us, we have enough people vaccinated that you're not going to see a wave or a surge of infections among the vaccinated. It will be a surge of infections among the unvaccinated. Well, that's the reason why people not getting vaccinated not only is a bad thing for them, it could actually interfere in a negative way with the rest of the country by generating variants that would elude the vaccines. That's the thing we're concerned about.
You see what he did there? Get vaccinated or else you may be a human petri dish for a super COVID virus. Notice that he doesn't ever stop to think, nor does he suggest that the spread of COVID, which is global all over the world right now, means that this is kind of absurd, right? COVID could come, a new variant could come, and they have come from all over the world already. So why say something like that? Well, to stoke fear and to create additional pressure on those who have refused the shot thus far from getting it, right? Or refuse the shot, rather, so that they will break down and actually get it. And to show you just the level to which this White House is willing to go, even at this stage with all the vaccines that have been out there. And remember, people have had plenty of time at this point to get vaccinated. They want to bring back masks. The White House is saying that they're willing to mask up all over again.
We will, of course, be abiding by every aspect of the CDC guidelines on masking. That means we will be prepared to wear masks again if required, if the guidance is leading to that, as would the president. And that will continue to be the case.
How well did masks work the last time around? Just wondering if at any point we can actually pose that question and get a real answer. Do we have any data, any evidence anywhere that mask mandates went into effect, that they were substantially effective, meaningfully effective in stopping the spread of COVID-19? If that data existed, don't you think we'd all know about it? Wouldn't they be leading news broadcasts with it? Wouldn't you be told over and over again what an enormous benefit we get from masking? But no, in fact, if you look at states that had mask mandates versus states that didn't, or cities and counties that did versus those that didn't, the data overwhelmingly speaks to they do basically nothing. That they have almost no and perhaps even no effect whatsoever on the general transmission of this virus within the population. So why go back to that? Well, because there's a whole regime here of lockdowns, of pandemic panic, of mitigation measures, the same people who really thought and convinced themselves and demanded of others that they obey that 6 feet of social distancing was going to really help save a lot of lives, or putting little markers in elevators for people's feet, putting the outlines of feet on the floor of an elevator so people know where to stand, or having circles out in the open air in a public park for where people should sit so they social distance. The geniuses that brought you all of that idiocy want to bring a lot of it back now, because if they don't, they feel like, hold on a second, maybe people will start to question whether we were right to do any of this in the first place. We can't allow COVID to spread as it is, and for people to see that it doesn't matter really whether you do these mitigation measures or not. So we got to make sure that people are told to do them, so we can say it would have been worse were it not for the mitigation measures. And of course, that then brings us to where we stand with the vaccine. The Biden administration has claimed at various points, Joe Biden himself said last December, not going to mandate vaccines. So he's going around asking everybody to get vaccinated. Here's what he said.
We still have a lot of people not vaccinated. The pandemic we have now is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. So please, 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 if you're not vaccinated, protect yourself and the children out there. It's important.
Protect the children? Let's just think about that for a second. Are kids really at risk for this virus? No, not really. Not at all. I mean, it can happen, but you can also get struck by lightning. You can drown in a bathtub. You don't wear a snorkel every time you go in the bathtub. You don't wear a helmet every time you get into a car. In fact, the real data on lethality of COVID-19 for children shows that it is more dangerous for a child to be in the car on the way to school than it's likely they're going to actually end up dying from COVID-19. So since we actually have data, we can look at these things, we can come to understandings about what's real and what's not. Why does the Biden administration cling to all this? Now, I think there are multiple layers here. There are different positions, different mentalities that exist within the Democrat mindset, broadly speaking, when it comes to this, the waning days of the pandemic. On the one hand, you have people who are just truly terrified beyond all reason and rationality. There are adults who are in their 30s and 40s who have a tiny, an infinitesimal risk of dying from COVID-19. They've been vaccinated already, and they still walk around in constant terror at the very possibility of getting COVID and dying from it, as if that's something they really need to be concerned about. And it's impossible to convince them otherwise until there's no COVID. And even then, there'll be some of them who say, well, it could make a comeback. There could be a variant. You never really know. And then there's also those who just see this as a mechanism of control and mass mobilization for political purposes, which is why they like the mask wearing, even if it has no value from an epidemiological standpoint. It has the political signaling value of, I'm somebody who listens to Fauci, I probably voted for Biden, and I take the virus seriously. I do what the government tells me. I believe the science, as they say. That's why we continue to have these mandates. That's why we continue to have this pushback from people who see this for what it is, which is no longer about the data, the facts, the reality. This has become something else unto itself. And until we take away their power to have power over us in the name of protecting us from COVID-19, this continues. All right, the CDC mask policy reversal, so insane. We need to talk about it with our friend Ryan Girdusky. He's up next. He's the author of They're Not Listening, brilliant political analyst. You want to hear what he's got on this. But I also want to tell you about the newest sponsor here on Hold the Line, My Digital Money. Everybody wants to invest in cryptocurrencies, but it's not easy to get started. That's why Colin Plume, the CEO of Noble Gold, decided to create My Digital Money. This is an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with concierge-level customer service. It's one of the few U.S.-based cryptocurrency companies that will answer your phone call and help you get started. And because your comfort and security is their absolute top priority, they offer an unparalleled military-grade security for your coins, trigger orders to help you secure opportunities for gains or limit losses without having to watch your account 24/7, a play money account so you can test the market without risking your money. And with the recent pullback of most of the major cryptocurrencies, this might be the best time to get into this exciting technology-based investment. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated professionals that have your back, speak to you honestly, and treat you like a human, not just a number. Check them out at mydigitalmoney.com. That's mydigitalmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Information on the Delta variant from several states and other countries indicates that in rare occasions, some vaccinated people infected with the Delta variant after vaccination may be contagious. This new science is worrisome and unfortunately warrants an update to our recommendations. This new data weighs heavily on me, this new guidance weighs heavily on me, and I just wanted to convey that this was not a decision that was taken lightly.
Sure, it really weighed heavily on Dr. Walensky. Somehow the science has changed dramatically again here in just the blink of an eye, it feels like. How'd that happen? What's really going on? What are the politics involved here? We got Ryan Gerdusky with us now. He's the author of They're Not Listening. Ryan, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
So this mask mandate is just garbage, right? This is silly. This is ridiculous. But the Biden administration's pretending like this is a thing that serious people will go along with. What do you see happening here?
So I looked up rolling death numbers in New York City. Remember back in March of 2020, there was 800 average deaths during the height of the epidemic. There's now 3 a week. That's the height. It's up from 2. At one point it was 4. That's what we're dealing with as far. I mean, infections have gone up, but deaths really haven't gone up. In Alexandria, Virginia, where they're saying it's uncontrollable, they have 8 infections per 100,000. Yeah, I think this is a little insane. And also, if you are that concerned with the coronavirus, if it's that much of an issue, why are you bringing in 20,000 people a day on our southern border, none of which are vaccinated or are even being tested for the coronavirus? Especially when we know there's another variant in South and Central America. It doesn't matter because they're coming from all over the world. Why would you have an open border if you cared about coronavirus? You clearly don't. This has nothing to do with the virus. If the virus is going to kill you, if it's that much of an impediment of our lives that we have to mask up again and shut down again, do everything all over again, why is the southern border wide open where 20,000 random strangers from around the world are coming in every single day, not tested, not vaccinated? Doesn't matter.
Ryan,
so if you
go ahead.
I mean, no, if you want to be like New Zealand and Australia, which literally has 0 immigration at all right now, both countries have completely locked down, and that's the deal we're going to be in as a society, I'm okay. I'll listen to you. Okay, we're all in this together. We're not going to have a hypocritical society, though, where we have to do it, but 20,000 people per day from around the world, if they can get to Mexico, can walk right in and be dumped across the entire country, but we have to wear masks inside. I refuse to believe any thinking American would actually play that game.
I mean, just to look at the numbers for a second, you have under 300 COVID deaths a day nationwide, something in the 200 range usually. They're up in the last 14 days, only about 6%, which is not some huge increase, some massive surge. They keep showing these maps that have the level of COVID community transmission in the U.S. And as you can see here, they're pretending that just because there's an increase in cases as a percentage, it's as though we're in this terrible place again. But caseload, even on a national basis, even the places they're talking about, is down 75, 80% from what it was. So, I mean, what is the game plan here? I mean, what do they really think they're going to accomplish?
Do you remember back in the mid-2000s when Bush was president, they used to have every day, every morning, they would say it was a red day or an orange day or yellow day based on the threat of terrorism. And it always seemed to be around the orange level, sometimes the red level. You never got to the green level. We never got back to it. Was always to say, you're always in a panic. We always need more power from you. We always need more control from you. You're never going to go back to what you thought you should be or what you were beforehand. This reminds me of that. And this is the greatest propaganda I think ever put on the American public. I mean, Joe McCarthy had nothing on this. So, I mean, this is at this point, it's complete and total propaganda. and you have this mass contagion, especially by white women who sit there and seem to think that they're all sick continually. And for some, they have sniffles one day, and then like 3 months later, they're still sick, but they have no kneecaps anymore. This insane mindset of how this illness is going about is my brain is finally broken enough where I can't believe anything coming out of the CDC's mouth on this.
It also feels like, I mean, you mentioned the CDC, but Dr. Walensky and these other, Fauci, these people that go on TV to talk about this, they don't even have plausible answers or explanations for the decision making anymore. I mean, it all feels like we're living in some kind of a farce that's playing out in real time. Here's on CNN, Rochelle Walensky talking about, or trying to answer the question of why, if it's really just about the unvaccinated, why are all these people who are vaccinated freaking out all the time?
Predominantly, this is something coming from unvaccinated people to unvaccinated people, correct?
For the most part, absolutely.
So then you can understand the frustration in those of us who are vaccinated saying, why the hell do I have to pay the price for this?
Right. So we're asking everybody in those areas of orange and red, and here to mask up. And here is the reason why. If you're a vaccinated person, you have, and you're in one of those areas, as you said, a sea of red, a sea of COVID, you have a reasonable high chance, if nobody's wearing a mask, to interact with people who may be infectious. They may only get mild disease, but we wanted them to know that they could bring that mild disease home, they could bring it to others.
I mean, what is this babble? Are you protected from the vaccine such that you shouldn't worry or not? This seems to be a pretty straightforward question, but obviously they don't think so anymore.
And also there's this doublespeak. In one breath, they sit there and say, well, it's the problem of conservatives and the problem of Fox News, and it's the problem of, Tucker Carlson, and they're the ones telling people not to get vaccinated. They're the ones causing the scare. And then if you look at the data, the most likely people to be vaccinated are older white people. The least likely are younger minorities, least likely to get vaccinated. Where is the miscommunication? I mean, it is to sit there and to constantly kind of stream this in and pump this in. And it's become a political move. I mean, if they would have an honest conversation, say, listen, this is a virus, will constantly mutate, it will constantly change, it's in the environment, please go get vaccinated. And the people not getting vaccinated right now, they are more than likely young, non-white people who don't believe, who think they're invincible forever. And with this virus, they more than likely are invincible from it. They're probably not going to die from it. 95% plus will not die from this virus if they're young and healthy. So I have a very difficult time with these people and these scam artists, and I don't think that American people will continue this forever. I mean, some will, but I have a hard time believing people want to do this forever with no exit strategy.
Ryan, always good to see you, man. Thanks so much for being with us.
Bye.
As if the 180 from the CDC on mask mandates wasn't bad enough, Biden is considering mandating vaccines for all federal workers. Folks, they're not even trying to hide the COVID authoritarianism anymore. David Harsanyi will join me next to discuss the grotesque overreach of power and the constantly shifting demands of the COVID security theater state. But first, let's talk about the most valuable asset most of us will ever own, our homes. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Home title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes out there. In fact, Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's online title, they forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset today. Register your address to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. Again, that's HomeTitleLock.com. We'll be right back.
Will you require all federal employees to get vaccinated?
That's under consideration right now, but if you're not vaccinated, you're not nearly as smart as I thought you were.
That's interesting, considering just last week the Biden administration opposed federal agencies requiring employees to get vaccinated, and then the White House said staff is not being forced to take it. So Now Biden's considering it. Where is the science in all this? Where's his backbone? Joining me now to discuss is senior writer at National Review, David Harsanyi. David, it feels like the White House just says whatever it wants on any given day about vaccines, and we're supposed to forget whatever was said a month ago. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is risk aversion, political risk aversion. It is Biden just hearing a bunch of voices on the left complaining about the rise in cases, and this is what he does to make it look like he's doing something to stop it. But obviously, I think, as you've mentioned many times, the science does not back up mask wearing, which has nothing, which seems to be mandated now in the House, I believe, maybe not the Senate, which has nothing to do with that, but, has something to do with vaccines. But, I don't know how the two are even linked, right? I mean, wearing masks doesn't persuade anyone to have a vaccine.
Yes, and yet we have more pushing from the White House and the Democrats for both of these things, and it's also happening at the local and state level in some places. Mayor Bill de Blasio here in New York City weighed in on this. Here's what he said.
On September 13th, the entire city workforce will be mandated under the COVID safety mandate to either get vaccinated, which is far preferable, or get tested once a week.
So this is what they're doing. For a long time, it seemed there was at least lip service paid to you get to choose. They're not going to force vaccinations. Biden said he doesn't want to force vaccinations. But now it's, well, we want the private sector to do it wherever we can. And we want city governments to either get people vaccinated or make their lives really annoying and miserable. By the way, he left out there, you're supposed to mask up, too. So if you're not vaccinated in New York City and you work for the government, you got to get tested every week and you got to mask up. That seems like they're not giving you much of a choice.
That's true, but I have seen some pushback. In Michigan and even in New Jersey, governors have said that they won't mandate mask wearing, even for especially for vaccinated people, which the CDC, I guess, wants us to do. So I think that the reason isn't because they've all of a sudden found the light. The reason is I think that their constituents and people are not interested in going through this again, especially when you see that the cases of rising, it's just not as dangerous. And frankly, I know this is going to sound terrible. I mean, if you don't want to vaccinate and you want to take your chances, I think that should be up to you. It's a free country. If you have a vaccine, COVID's not that dangerous, right? If you're a kid, COVID's not that dangerous. If you're a kid, COVID is not dangerous for you in any real way. So I don't know. I mean, it's a free country. We should be able to live the way. At
what point can we? I mean, I'm actually really curious about this in your mind, David, because at what point can we just say people that are people that choose not to get vaccinated, it's not my problem at this point. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. If someone's choosing not to do it, people have chosen not to get the flu vaccine, stretching back for decades, and a lot of those people, especially if they were, older and had more health issues, ended up dying. Maybe the vaccine would have saved them, maybe not. But we certainly didn't say you have to do it as a function of law or keeping your job. But now this is different. I mean, this is a virus with an above 99% survival rate.
Right. Now, at least, and I disagreed with it, lockdowns and so forth, pre-vaccine, the excuse was, or the case was, hey, listen, we have this pandemic we can't stop. We can't do anything about it. We have to make sure that it doesn't spread. Now, we do have something we can do about it we can do about it personally for it not to spread. And most, what are we at? 48%, something like that in the nation is vaccination rate, which is as good as almost any country and a little better than most Western countries. So we can do something about it. So there is really no reason for lockdowns or mandates for mask wearing. And I'm against mandates for vaccines simply because I don't think we should be forcing people to put medicines in their bodies. I don't know that there's any federal law that I don't know if there's any sort of law in the past that would mandate such a thing. I don't know that there is. I don't think that there should be. And certainly, as you mentioned, most people do not die of COVID, so that mandate's not necessary. So I don't know where this is all going. It doesn't make sense. As you said, it's hard to talk about it because one day Biden says one thing, the next day he says something else. CDC, who knows what they're going to say tomorrow? It seems like it's political pressure, performative in many ways, all this stuff, and pretty dangerous for our rights if people go along with it.
I mean, the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, has mandated, again, vaccines and or weekly testing for employees. So there are people that are still trying to really use whatever tools they have at their disposal. And I think also another part of this is that you have a wink and a nod from the White House, from the Biden administration, to private sector companies, right? You've got Google now requiring all employees to get the vaccine if they want to return to the office. And the federal government is clearly saying, yeah, this is great. Now, I know people could say, well, these are private companies, but it all feels a little bit like a bait and switch here, David, because about 6 months ago, when the vaccines are first really getting rolled out, it's going to be a choice, people can do, and now it's actually not really a choice. Get vaccinated or else.
Right. Now, I would say they're private companies and they can do what they want. The problem is, as we saw with Facebook and with speech issues, that quite often the government has such influence and power over these companies that they just do whatever it does. Maybe they're not even colluding to do it, but they just do it. And that seems problematic to me. Not that I know how we can stop that. Listen, I mean, I'm not against private companies saying you have to get a vaccine. You can go work somewhere else if you don't like it. I have a bigger problem when the government, which has a massive workforce, starts doing it. Because I think that they live under a different set of sort of rules than just a private company. So, but if Google wants to do it, that's fine by me.
Are you at this point concerned that there's just a large segment of the country, I can't give what the number is, I don't think anyone knows, that's just never going to let this go? That as long as there is such a thing as COVID in circulation, we're going to have to hear about it. They're going to want to wear masks. They're going to want booster shots.
Yeah, I mean, and COVID is going to be with us forever. It's just going to be here. It's not going to go away. And I think that they use this as a way to expand the power of the state. And there's this weird sort of fetish about masks that is just, I don't understand. I live in Montgomery County in Maryland, and I go to the supermarket and about 80% of people are still wearing masks. I just don't understand. It's one of the most vaccinated counties near DC. And it's near DC. So I don't supposedly we're supposed to be following the science here, and we're not.
There are counties where there are people masking up in considerable numbers, particularly in the Northeast. And you mentioned, what do you see in Montgomery County, where it's like a half a dozen people a month are dying in that county from COVID. I mean, an actual count on one hand number of people, and folks are still walking around who are vaccinated with masks on. I mean, at some point, this is just an anxiety disorder on display or some kind of political signaling.
You literally would have to go out and try. You couldn't, if you wanted to, try and get it and die from it if you have a vaccine. I mean, you literally couldn't do it. You couldn't kill yourself with COVID, and yet people walk around in masks. So I don't get it. But listen, you do what you want. But it does, I think, speak poorly of people that they're so risk averse and so scared of things, that they don't need to be scared of, or that they're scared of the wrong things. And they're so willing to jump when the CDC says something. I mean, the CDC has no power over you, and people act like it does. So that is bothersome in sort of bigger, longer term ways, I think.
David, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, you've heard students bullying other students, right? That's a problem. What about students bullying their teachers in medical school? My next guest, Morgan Zegers, will join us to discuss that shortly. First, I want to tell you about My Digital Money. Everybody wants to invest in cryptocurrencies, but it's not easy to get started. That's why Colin Plume, the CEO of Noble Gold, decided to create My Digital Money. It's an easy-to-use, self-trading crypto IRA platform with concierge-level customer service. It's one of the few U.S.-based cryptocurrency companies that will answer your phone call and help you get started. Because your comfort and security is their absolute top priority, they offer an unparalleled military-grade security for your coins, trigger orders to help you secure opportunities for gains or limit losses without having to watch your account 24/7. A play money account so you can test the market without risking your money. And with the recent pullback of most of the major cryptocurrencies, this could be the best time to get into this exciting technology-based investment. When it comes to your money, you deserve a team of dedicated professionals that have your back, speak to you honestly, and treat you like a human, not just a number. Check them out at mydigitalmoney.com. That's mydigitalmoney.com. We'll be right back. Woke warriors unite. A student at a University of California medical school says her peers are now policing words used by professors, and professors have come forward apologizing for using what these students are calling wrong speak. In this case, a non-gender neutral term was used. This was covered by the Daily Mail. Here are a couple of the excerpts from the article. instructors are too scared to acknowledge the existence of two different sexes because it can be considered transphobic. An unnamed professor told the class, "I said when a woman is pregnant, which implies that only women can get pregnant, and I most sincerely apologize to all of you." How do you think these students will feel when they have to apply for a position at a hospital and under sex? It only shows male and female. Joining me now to discuss is the founder of Young Americans Against Socialism and a contributor here at The First, Morgan Zegers. Morgan, how you doing?
I'm great, thanks, Buck. How are you?
I would think that in medical school, you could be a professor who says only women can get pregnant, but it turns out the students in the medical school have a problem with that. What is going on here?
Yeah, well, this is actually an example of a greater trend that we're seeing here. It used to be a concern that kids were going to go off to college and get indoctrinated, right? Well, now on social media, you have some crazy stuff going around, like telling people, especially young kids, that everybody can get their periods. It's not just women, that it's not breastfeeding, it's chest feeding. And so I find it very interesting that these students are going into their universities and then attacking their professors for wrong things now because they're learning this woke politics stuff before they even get to the classroom.
But in a medical school setting, I mean, there would seem to be a greater focus on factual, dare I say, scientific evidence. And in the article that's cited here, for example, which comes from Barry Weiss's Substack, they talk about how there have been cases, for example, in 2019, a man came into the emergency room at a hospital in this country. I think it was in Massachusetts. I forget where. But a man came into emergency room complaining of pain in the abdomen, and they treated the man because the person was identified as a man for not having a hypertension medication that needed to be taken. And it turned out the man was actually a woman who was a transgender man who was pregnant, and because they didn't treat the actual the birth that was going on, the baby ended up dying. So there's a real reason to take this stuff seriously. How does the left get around that? I mean, how are any of us supposed to take them seriously when they're just avoiding objective reality?
I mean, Buck, have you heard of COVID-19? They continue to claim that they are the pro-science side, but they are the most anti-science movement I have ever seen. And so we're not just going to see that with COVID-19. We're going to see that play out in every other aspect of politics, whether it's climate change or gender. What I think is really interesting here is that there's a major issue of self-esteem. And so a lot of conservatives, a lot of parents are worried about participation trophies these days. And I wonder, what about participation trophies is really so bad for our kids? It teaches self-esteem versus self-worth. And so these people find self-esteem in these small movements. They're going to go to the hospital and lie about their bodily anatomy. And they're going to lose their child now, apparently, all for that self-esteem of continuing this guise that they've created thanks to woke politics.
Shifting gears, Morgan, recently in Dallas, Texas, a Black Lives Matter group had asked white liberals to pledge that their kids would not attend an Ivy League school or a top 50 U.S. News and World Report school. It read, the flyer read, "Dallas Justice Now, a Black Lives Matter group which has been devoted to defunding the Dallas Police Department, has now launched a college pledge to say will demonstrate support for the Black Lives Matter." This is from the Washington Times, rather. Black Lives Matter cause more than a yard sign or small donation. The group says it will name all in the Highland Park Independent School District who sign and do not sign the pledge. They went as far as to stuff a pamphlet in their mailboxes detailing their wishes and demands. We have some of it highlighted for you here. Whether you know it or not, you earned or inherited your money through oppressing people of color. We are asking you to pledge that your children will not apply or attend any Ivy League school. If you do not have children under 18, we pledge you to hold your white privileged friends, family, and neighbors and children to this standard. What to make of this? I actually kind of like this, Morgan, but I want to hear what you think of it.
You like it? Very interesting. Okay,
I want white liberals to have to do more than just put BLM hashtags on their Instagram. I think if they really are down with the cause, they should actually take some action.
They did pretty much ask for this and set themselves up for this situation. Us, we look at this and we say, well, yeah, that makes sense. We were going down this path towards totalitarianism. But for a lot of people, they're going to be really confused as the left starts to eat their own, because that's what happens throughout history. I think what's really important to look at here is that this is not just cancel culture on social media. Instead, the cancel culture was just one aspect of the totalitarian rise in America. I specifically want you to think of, remember when Chip and Joanna Gaines, the property flippers, they have the show, they donated $1,000 to their family member of theirs that was going to run for school board, and she happened to be against critical race theory. That donation put them on the front headlines of thehill.com. And I just think it's very interesting. We're losing the freedom of association and expression in this country because we can't donate to candidates. You saw they also exposed Trump donors. You can't affiliate or also not affiliate with their side. You have to be anti-racist. You have to sign their pledges or you will be exposed.
Morgan, it seems to me, though, that if there's a way we can force white liberals' hypocrisy out in the open, sounds like a plan.
I mean, yeah, they set themselves up for this. I can only hope that this behavior by the leftists who believe in authoritarianism, totalitarianism, I hope it wakes them up. I hope it helps them see that classical liberalism and capitalism are really the core American values that we need to stand on and then bicker it out later as Republicans versus Democrats.
Morgan, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Beck.
Coming up, one Texas representative has some choice words for Democrats, and Mayor de Blasio has struck a deal for you. Find out next on Quick Hits exactly what we're talking about here. But first, let's talk about Black Rifle Coffee. If you're like me, you got to start your day with a healthy dose of caffeine, and that means a delicious cup of Black Rifle Coffee. Not only is it some of the best coffee I've ever had, it's a veteran-owned company that serves premium coffee to people who love America. Black Rifle Coffee is continually committed to supporting veteran law enforcement and first responder causes. This summer, Black Rifle invites you to enjoy your coffee, not just the great taste, but also the places you drink it, the passion and adventure it fuels and inspires, and the entertainment Black Rifle serves along the way. Whether you're brewing the perfect cup of pour-over before kicking ass at work or cracking a can of 300 on your next backcountry mission, Black Rifle Coffee Company is here to fuel your way wherever the summer takes you. Black Rifle imports high-quality coffee beans from all over the world and roasts them 5 days a week at their facilities in Manchester, Tennessee, and Salt Lake City, Utah. The team at Black Rifle is continually researching and experimenting with new roasting methods and coffee origins. Purchase at blackriflecoffee.com/buck. Use code BUCK at checkout for 20% off your purchase and your first coffee club order. Fuel your summer with America's coffee, Black Rifle Coffee. We'll be right back. New York City's Mayor de Blasio thinks $100 is going to be enough incentive to get some New Yorkers vaccinated who haven't gotten the shot yet. Biden also has another senior moment, this time forgetting Obama. Remember the president that Biden served under for 2 terms? Let's get into quick hits first with this. There have been some programs for a while now to get people to get the shot who have not up to this point. I think they were giving out free burgers at Shake Shack, and they've tried other promotions. They just want people to get this shot very, very badly. Now, the city of New York, with Mayor de Blasio at the helm, tragic for the city of New York, but he is still technically the mayor for 1 more year, and we have to suffer through that madness. They're offering cold hard cash, $100. Here you go.
Here's an announcement that I think will move a lot of people. Starting on Friday, we will provide at city-run vaccination sites, when you get your first dose of the coronavirus vaccine, when you get your first dose, you will get a $100 incentive. Get vaccinated, get that first dose, get qualified to be able to go to all sorts of amazing things, and get a $100 incentive. It does not get better than that.
$100 incentive, I mean, I'm assuming it's like $100, some kind of a check or cash or whatever it is they're going to give you, probably a check. Hope it's not, $100 you can spend at, Nathan's hot dog or something, right? You would think that this is something that's pretty straightforward, but, with Bill de Blasio at the helm, you absolutely never know what you're going to get. But apparently you're supposed to get $100, so there's that. So maybe some folks will go out there and get the shot who had been fighting up to this point. Joe Biden has another senior moment. People are looking at this and they're saying, yeah, no surprise. Joe Biden's too old for the job. The guy is foggy. We all know it. We all see it. And stuff like this happens.
Back in 2009, during the so-called Great Recession, the president asked me to be in charge of managing that piece, then President Trump. Excuse me, Freudian slip. That was the last president. He caused, anyway, that was President Obama when I was vice president.
I gotta say, actually, that Freudian slip really wasn't very bad. I mean, that wasn't even really a senior moment. I don't know. I speak for 3 hours a day on radio plus an hour of this show, so I've said stuff that was more bumbling than that. But then again, Joe Biden is still having senior moments, too old for the job. So make of that what you will. Texas Representative Chip Roy has some thoughts on the Democrats and the border, which, as we know, is more lawless than it has probably ever been. More people coming across illegally than at any time since they've been keeping track and looking at those numbers. Here's what the representative had to say about that.
We have a crisis at our border, and we're playing footsie with mask mandates in the people's house. I mean, it's absolutely absurd what this body is doing, the people's house. It's an embarrassment. It's a mockery. And the American people are fed up. And the speaker comes down here at 10 o'clock in the morning saying we got to wear masks in the people's house while we've got thousands of people pouring across our border and Democrats don't do a darn thing about it, heavily infected with COVID. This sham of an institution is doing nothing for the American people.
Got to wear masks in the House of Representatives? What about the fact they're vaccinated? Oh, it's just because it's really a social signifier for Democrats now. It's almost like a status symbol. You wear a mask because you're a good person who cares. It doesn't matter that it's scientifically useless and doesn't do anything to stop the spread of COVID that they can prove with any actual data. And for people who are vaccinated, it's absurd. It's almost like walking around with some kind of a rubber shield over your head in the hopes you don't get struck by lightning. This is crazy, but they still do it. They view this as a means of showing everybody how serious they are about the virus. And beyond that, let's just also remember that the Biden administration and the Democrats in Congress are doing nothing to stop the illegal flow across our southern border, which involves thousands and thousands of people every day. And a serious proportion of those people do in fact have COVID-19, right? A considerable portion of them, according to reports that have been released in the last few days and stretching back for weeks, are infected with COVID. So are we taking this seriously or not? Do we have to try to control the degree and level of infection, or is this something that we're just going to continue to see hypocrisy on? And then beyond that, the border and sovereignty for the U.S. and security just doesn't seem to be a consideration at all. Democrats could clearly care less about the fact that we have a de facto open border and that we're going to have close to 2 million people illegally enter the United States in this year alone. We're going to be setting all-time records on Joe Biden's watch. Do you feel like, oh, whatever happened to Kamala, the border czar? Remember that? Kamala Harris, border czar. Nope. She's not doing anything about it. In fact, she's just sort of passed this off to somebody else. Who's that person? Well, nobody really, because no one's doing anything about it. Oh, here's something that was a bit of a surprise. A California restaurant that says only the unvaccinated are allowed in. Trying to play here with vaccine passports. Not even an unvaccination passport, in a sense. I don't know how you would even do that. But I like this other thing too. This sign that says "Leave the mask, take the cannoli," a play on the Godfather. "Leave the gun, take the cannoli," famous line there. Godfather, great movie, holds up very well. So some places are seeing this for what it is. This is madness, folks. But that's why you come here, because this is a little breath of sanity for all of you in your day. That's going to be it for tonight's Hold the Line. We got the No Spin News with Bill O'Reilly up next. Shields high.